let you do this slide.
Okay, thank you. Right. So yeah, Sustainable Putnam was formed just this year in February, just before the pandemic really struck, or at least before we knew it struck in February. And we had one meeting, 60 people from our county showed up at a library in Mahopac. And you know, since that time, we've established this mission statement to develop sustainable communities. And we're really using kind of the triple bottom line as our mission to develop ecologically sound, socially equitable, and economically responsible communities, not just for us, but really for our children and our grandchildren. Michael?
Okay. So Joe, thank you for that introduction. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and speaking. And let's see, so one way to look at the process of going solar is to figure out the best way to save money. So in this flow chart, the summary is going to say, the greater ownership you have of solar electricity production, the more money you will save on electricity. And I'm going to cut to the end here. And I also want to say something. If you can see me looking back and forth, I'm always looking over here. It's because I have a big screen over here. And so sorry, I'm not looking right at you. But this is what I'm doing. So I just want to explain that. So the four options you have, one is to own your own system. And this is by far the best deal as far as how much money you will save. But you need to put money down up front. You need to either buy it or do a loan. Of the three community solar options, one is a share purchase. This is where you actually purchase some of the panels within a big community solar array. It's the next best deal to the home system, not quite as good in price. In this one, you also lock in the price for, you pay up front, and then all the electricity that's produced for the next 20 years is yours. So it's basically a fixed price. With the share subscription model of community solar, you sign up and basically you get 10% off your electric bill. And I'll go into the details of that later, but it's a good deal. The company still owns all of the solar panels, but you get the subscription and you get 10% off, and you're also supporting the solar industry in New York. And then Solar for All is a good environmental justice program. It provides solar power for low-income New Yorkers. So I'm going to quickly go through this now, and then we'll also visit once again at the end. But the thought process goes this way. Can you currently afford a long-term investment, either cash or a responsible loan? If the answer to that is yes, do you plan to stay in your current home for the foreseeable future? Yes to that. Do you own your home? If the answer to that is yes, then we ask, is your home suitable for a solar installation? Now, only about 20% of the homes are actually suitable. The main issue is shading. If there's other trees or in some places mountains, other buildings that are putting shade on your property, that's the big deal. If your roof is aimed the wrong direction and has, like, for example, our house is a Cape Cod style home, and the windows that stick out, the roof just isn't right for doing solar panels. So that's a deal breaker. The other thing, this happens. Sometimes, let's say you or your significant other has previously been in some sort of intimate relationship with a solar panel salesman, and that completely fell apart, and now somebody doesn't ever want to see a solar panel again. These things happen. And that's why not everyone can do it on their home. But if all the stars align and your home is suitable for solar installation, that's your best deal, is to purchase or take a loan to buy a system for your own house. Then if you own your home, but your house isn't suitable, or I'm sorry, if you don't own your home, you want to go for one of the community solar options. Theoretically, you would go for purchasing a share, but what they tell me usually happens is if they don't own the home, they're going to end up in the share subscription model. let's say you do own the home, but you're not right for solar installation, then you want to, if possible, get a share purchase of a community solar array. If you don't plan to stay in your home for the foreseeable future, you probably should just go straight to a share subscription. If you're really not in position to making an investment in solar panels, then the next question is, are you a low-income New Yorker? And we'll go over that in detail later. But if you're a low-income New Yorker, then you can sign up for Solar for All. It's a great deal. If you're not, you want to try the share subscription model. Let's look at some other considerations about going solar. Another way to look at the opportunity to go solar is from the viewpoint of what citizens of planet Earth need to be doing to address the climate crisis. Project Drawdown ranks community solar as the #2 solution of of the 100 in Project Drawdown. Now, nowadays they do their rankings differently. This is when they rank the solutions. It's if we're going to hit the target of only 1.5 degree of centigrade of warming, we need to do a lot of investing in the community solar. It becomes #2. And then the home solar is also in the top 10. So this is really is a positive step for us to be taking to getting invested in doing things with solar. Also, our state is committed to obtaining 70% of its electricity from renewables by 2030 and having an emissions-free electricity sector by 2040. Because of these, there are great incentives for purchasing your home PV system. Also, our state has some of the best community solar options in the country. If you just step across the border from Putnam County into Connecticut, I think they're just starting pilot projects. They don't have a thriving system for this. And the Solar for All is a bit of environmental justice that New York State is already trying to carry out. So some of our citizens here watch the CLCPA and are concerned or disheartened that the process isn't moving along fast enough. But many of us are not aware of how the Empire State is making it easy for residents to participate in the transition to clean energy, especially solar. Okay, so with very few exceptions, when we go solar, we remain tied to the electricity grid. And the grid links together ESCOs, the utilities such as ONR and NYSEG and Central Hudson, and electricity consumers. Now, the basic fact, we all know this, solar power is not generated 24 hours a day. When you have your home system, a very small portion of the electricity that you generate will be used for your immediate electrical usage, or maybe it will go into backup batteries. But most of it goes onto the grid. And the grid gives that electricity back to us later when we need it. So, and then with community solar, it's really very similar. The electricity all goes onto the grid and it comes to us when we need it. There's a good book on the subject called The Grid, The Fraying Wires Between Americans and Our Energy Future by Gretchen Bach. We read that in book club a few months, year or so back, and it really is useful for understanding things. And I mention these issues because the grid is actually an important resource for us and the different players, and it's important to understanding the grid for your consumer choices. Let's see. While we're talking about this topic, could everyone please type into the chat the name of your utility and also a grade for how well you think they do their job. So, A to F, just like in high school. And Joe, if you could read those out. Joe?
Yes, I've also been typing in the chat a couple of the resources that Michael has been mentioning. So I see NYSEG C, I see NYSEG B+, I see another NYSEG C. Oh, a NYSEG D. And as a former teacher, I think I need to create an average now for NYSEG. And then Orange and Rockland B+.
Okay, and I want to ask everyone to type in a word or a phrase that tells us how you feel about ESCOs.
Energy service companies. If you subscribe to an energy service company, getting your power from a source other than the utility that you live with.
Like Green Mountain Energy.
Right.
Somebody was previously mentioning.
So we've got one very positive. We have another no experience with ESCOs. I'm going to say mixed experience because I've dealt with 2 ESCOs, both of which sold renewable power, but one raised its rates to an exorbitant amount and the other one has been fine.
Okay, very good. A lot of times we hear really bad things about the ESCOs. And it sounded to me like NYSEG was getting us maybe a C or a B- or something there. But okay, at this point, I want to invite everyone into my backyard to have a look at some solar panels. So, you know, when we talk about quarantining, I guess I have to say, I wish everyone had the same blessings that I had. Our house isn't the biggest house in Warwick. We're not on the most, not on the most la-di-da street or road in Warwick, but we do have a really wonderful backyard. When we moved in 8 years ago, the only thing here was a swing set that's down over in this area where we have vegetables growing now. And so we moved here, like I said, 8 years ago. In 2015, we had this pavilion built specifically for putting the solar panels on. And as I was saying before the show started, the builders suggested and that we aim the pavilion solar south so that it was getting the maximum amount of sunshine. If it had been parallel with these raised beds, it would have been parallel to our house. Now that's a shift of about 23 degrees. And if that had been done, if we had put it straight with our house, then it would have required an 11th solar panel. So you don't have to face, perfectly solar south. If you're off a little bit, it's okay. But then if you're running so that you're, directly east and west, then it's really a different consideration for how effective it'll be. So in 2018, we got this second set of solar panels back here. And that was because, so this set of panels covered all of our electric usage, but then we decided to get heat pumps. So instead of heating with fossil fuels and propane, now we're using electricity. And let's see, I want to point out, you see this stone path right here. When they put this in, they actually had to dig a trench all the way for conduit to run. And going down this post of this pavilion, there's a little box, I can see it there. And again, the wires go off of here and into this trench that come into our house and then go into the main circuit box for our electric service. And let's see. Do we suppose it was expensive to do this? For the panels on our solar pavilion, the original system price was $15,470. Now I mentioned that New York State gives a lot of incentives. They change over time. When we did this in 2015, they reduced the overall contract price by $2,100. So this is what we had to pay. It's just that on April 15th of the following year, we got tax credits, a federal tax credit of 30% and a New York tax credit of 25%. So our final cost after tax credits for our first solar system was just $6,000. And they estimated that it would produce more than it has, but still, based on its average annual production, and in Orange and Rockland territory, they charge about 18 cents a kilowatt hour. I figure every year I'm saving about 530 bucks by having that toy sitting out in my backyard. And if you do a little bit of math, you'll see that comes to about 11 years. After 11 years, this system will have paid itself off. And then I'll have, the panels are warranted for 25 years. And then beyond that, they're still supposed to generate electricity. And then let's zoom into the our ground mount system. And as I said before, the first set of panels covered all of our basic electricity, but then we got to heating and cooling with heat pumps. So what kind of sticker shock do you suppose we have here? Well, here the system price was $22,000. The incentive was less. As I said, they change over time, and your contractor will let you know if you sign up to get this installed. So the total contract price came to a little over $20,000. The federal tax credit was 30%. The New York State tax credit has a cap of $5,000. So we didn't get it. The last $207, we didn't get that credit. I think this is a good thing to know, that 25% with a cap of $5,000. If you can go solar in stages, like we did, or maybe you can put some panels in now, and then later decide you want to get an electric car or do heat pumps or something like that, so you need more panels. Basically making sure that every time you get as much of that 25% New York State tax credit, that would be better than trying to put everything on one bill. I believe that it will work out that way.
Michael,
so our final cost for this system was $9,100, a little bit more. And these panels are kicking out 7,300 kilowatt hours per year. So at a value of 1,300 bucks, it looks like in 6 or 7 years, they'll pay themselves off. 7 years, I'm sorry, that's the number for that.
And Michael, all of those rebates and incentives, the contractor filed the paperwork for those, is that correct?
The incentive, they do for that. When they gave me the quotes on how much the system was cost, all these were figured in. I do have to warn about something. This year, the federal tax credit dropped to 26%. Next year, it will drop to 22%. It's scheduled to go to 0 after that. But there is, as we know, a new administration coming in. So you have to keep your eyes open on that.
Right.
The other thing to mention is the cost of the systems are dropping. The cost of the panels and so forth is dropping. So if the incentives are dropping, it's partially offset by the fact that the cost is dropping and the productivity of the panels is increasing. Okay, so let's see. If your house or yard is right for solar panels, then they can be a great investment. That's the point of the last few pictures I've tried to show. And also, as you can see, I've got an extensive garden, which means I've got lots of weeds to deal with. Now, I hope you'll wade along with me into the weeds to learn the details about getting solar panels. So if you want to buy panels for your house, the first thing you want to do is get multiple quotes from installers. And you want to select a reputable installer. And the way to do that, I think, is first look on the NYSERDA website. And I think Joe can paste, I gave him a link to paste into the chat. Or it's easy to find on the NYSERDA website if you search for solar installers on NYSERDA. And they have a list of NYSERDA quality solar installers specifically for your area. So check those out. I think there are 18 or 19 for Putnam County. I was checking the other day. And try to make your list from them. Then also ask around your friends at Sustainable Putnam or Sustainable Warwick, and see who other people have gone with and have had luck with. And you want to get at least 3 quotes. I was mentioning this in the pre-show. You want to avoid leasing. If it's going to be on your property, it will be very difficult to sell your house when that time comes. And also, Consumer Reports recommends against leasing. As far as a cash or loan, some investment gurus will say, oh yeah, take the loan, invest the money in the market. You'll make money while you're paying off your loan. Other people say you want the hard assets to sort of diversify. It's possible to set up these loans so that your electric bill, it falls to just $20 a month, but your payments on the loan are less than the electricity bill you otherwise would have been paying. So there are really good deals out there for doing this. And as we mentioned before, when you get a quote from an installer, it will tell you how much your NYSERDA grant will be and what the New York and federal tax credits will be. They will also estimate the annual output. An estimate is an estimate. It won't necessarily turn out exactly as they expect, but and also depending on how cloudy a year is, that can affect your annual output. If you own your own personal power plant, it really is a good asset to have. When you do this, you will still need to have a supplier or an ESCO, or your utility could be that, because some months your solar output might not cover all of your usage, and so you will need a supplier. And now I want to go into net metering. I think this bill illustrates it pretty clearly. So my friend Sunny Day, who lives on Sunnyside Road here in Warwick, loaned me this bill so I could explain this to you. If you can see, in September, his bill was almost 57,800. I'm sorry, his meter reading was almost 57,800. But then in October, now that's a month later, his reading was down to 57,100 something. So what happened here is he generated more electricity than he used. So his meter spun backwards. That's what's called net metering. He generated, it doesn't say how much he generated. All it shows is he generated a certain amount, he used a certain amount, but he generated 672 more than he used. And then if you look down on this part of the bill, you'll see that from prior months, the electric company already owed him 2,800 kilowatt hours. So now they own 3,500 kilowatt hours. The other thing to notice here is the whole bill comes out to $19.93. That's a basic service charge, and I think it's different in NYSEG territory. I think it's only $17.50 there, or in that neighborhood, plus 43 cents tax. So remember I was saying, in our case, our average bills was like $75 a month before we got our first set. So then it went from $75 a month to $19.93 a month. So we paid cash, but if we paid a loan, we're basically getting $55, saving $55 a month on this. And a loan possibly could have been less than that amount to pay off a loan for that. Okay, so this is net metering. Let me just show one more thing. So this is the following month's bill. As we recall, back in October, he was at 57,108. Now in November, a month later, it's up 57,191. So this month he's used 83 more than he's generated. So now we go back to our prior credits and say, oh, the bill didn't change. It's still just $19.93. It's just that the cumulative credit has been reduced. So that's where the I'm sorry. Let me take that sentence back. So this is how net metering works. It's a good basic concept to understand if you're going to be involved in solar energy. So I think everyone in the solar field agrees, if your home is suitable for solar, and if you can afford to have it installed, that's where you'll get the best financial return. And I want to look at a few more details of how this works before we go to community solar. So this chart shows sample production throughout the year. And I hope it helps you to understand how the seasonal trends. So it applies not only to owners of home solar systems, but also to solar power, the solar array customers. So When the days are longer, you get more solar production. When the days are shorter, you get less. What would happen if they built a system that was so big that in December, January, and February, it covered all of your usage in those months? Well, what would happen is your summer month production would just be huge. And the way the laws are written, they can't really build you a system on your own property that's much bigger than your annual usage. When they do this, they try to size it to match your annual output with your annual usage. And let's see, electric usage patterns can change from household to household. This is how ours worked in those 3 different years. We tend to have a peak in the winter. Some people do air conditioning and it goes way up in the summer. But there tend to be peaks and it doesn't necessarily go along with the solar production. That's why understanding the cumulative credits and your cushion of kilowatt hours is important. And this shows like 3 different years, the general pattern that from May, June, July, every year, I mean, in 2015 was when this solar system was installed. So in the first 2 months, there was no generation. But basically, it builds and builds and builds until you get to like November, and then it starts getting used up. It's a little like having a wood pile and being aware of how much you have on hand at any point in the year. So with an eye to whether or not you're going to make it through the winter with enough wood. And it works out even as you're going through the winter, you can see, oh gosh, we're using wood too fast. We need to slow down a little bit or whatever. And if you start in the autumn with no cushion at all, the production during the winter won't come close to covering your usage. But once you get to April or May, in most years it's April, you'll start building a cushion that should be big enough by the following autumn to cover all of your usage through the following winter. So the key concept here is that if you purchase your own power station, the cost over a 25-year period is very low, 9 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour. And after 25 years, it will still be generating electricity. That 9 to 12 cents is based on, what's the price of your system, whether you're doing a loan or not, and the estimated total output over 25 years. Then beyond that is not counted into the estimate of what that comes out to. Many of us won't be in our homes for 25 years, but over time, the panels will pay for themselves. And so it's a good investment in the value of the home. Also, investing in your own solar plant is a good goal to aim for. It's good for the environment and it's great for your budget. But we know many people are not in the right home or the right financial position to do this. So those people should look into community solar. There are 2 kinds of community solar in New York, but they both follow the same basic model. So remember how a homeowner with solar panels is feeding most of her output into the grid and getting it back later? Okay, so with community solar, it's all fed into the grid. And then the customers can continue to get their electricity from the grid. I should say it, I hope everybody knows, there are no special wires running from the grid or from the source to your home. It's not like emails that end up in your email account. The electrons aren't created in with a specific spin that they're going to send them to your house. It's not like that. You're still taking your electricity off the grid. So as I mentioned, there are 2 kinds of community solar. We're going to look at the share purchase style first. And I want to describe this to you, but I want to say first up, it's not currently available in our region. So in this model, the solar array company sells specific panels in the array to specific purchasers. So, my neighbors maybe will buy some because they had too many trees because they couldn't do their own solar panels. And a church or a synagogue will get enough to cover their electric bill. And the Brown family they'll do some, and a bakery will get more panels because their ovens need a lot of electricity, and so forth. That way, if it's not the company that owns it, but the individuals who participate who own it. So in the past, SunCommon was the only company that offered share purchase community solar in this region. And if you're interested in doing this, I strongly suggest you contact Uncommon and say, put me on your waiting list. I'd like to do this. Same for home system you want to buy with a cash or loan. There are federal tax credits. There are no New York credits for this, but the New York does sort of figure in your end price. So that's to take into consider. Again, it's like you own your personal power plant, and you still need an ESCO for times when it doesn't cover. And the net metering works the same as I just described for a home solar system. The price you end up with is going to be something like 12 to 14 cents per kilowatt hour, again, depending on how much it generates. This usually lasts for 20 years. That's the time of the lease. It's not clear what happens after 20 years. Again, this is a good asset. You pay a certain amount up front. You can do a low interest loan and pay less on the loan than you would have on your electric bill. But again, it's currently not available. So this is the one that is. So in the share subscription model, the solar array company holds onto the ownership of the panels and the whole system. There is no upfront purchase for the consumer. There are no monthly fees. There are no cancellation fees. There are, as I mentioned, no wires running to your home. So this is different from a home PV system or the share purchase model. You pay nothing, you just subscribe. Then the solar array must be in your utility service area for you to participate in it. And the ones you are eligible for are listed on the NYSERDA website. And actually there are a few that you could sign up for that are not listed on the NYSERDA website. You should winnow the list of those by the ones that give a 10% discount. Some give less than that. When they first came out, there was like a penny off per kilowatt hour, maybe 5%. You've got to get at least 10% now to get a good deal. So you want to look at their discount. Also look at when they can start your subscription. If they're going to put you off for 4, 5, 6 months before they start you, and somebody else can start you right away, depending on the size of your electric bill, that can be helpful. Some of them also give a sign-up bonus of like $100 or something. But then again, if you're going to wait for months to get on, depending on the size of your bill, that $100 gift card may not be the best deal for you. And you still need an ESCO or an energy supplier. And I've said 10% off delivery and supply. I'm going to qualify this later. I've been learning some things about this. I've got this slide here to explain how the 10% off works. And I've just recently learned this is how it works when they follow the net metering model. So let's say this is your electric bill. It averages out to $120 a month. You've got a $20 basic service charge, a $50 delivery charge, and another $50 supply charge. So altogether, your bill is $120. If you sign up for community solar and they do this net metering, you will end up with 2 separate bills. For now, it's a separate bill. You will still be paying the $20 to your utility, but your community solar array will add up your supply charge and your delivery charge. They'll knock 10% off that price and charge you this much. That's a pretty good deal for something you don't have any fees to sign up for, right? So you end up saving $10 a month on that. What I've heard is in NYSEG, in March or April, they'll do consolidated billing. So in this slide, the supply charge is separate here, but it will actually all be on the same bill. So now it's a little bit of a pain to pay a separate bill, but it's not the end of the world, and it's a good idea to do it. I'm gonna let's see. Let's just ask a couple more questions. Why does the supplier get $90 instead of $50? It's because they have to build their arrays locally, and we get 2 big benefits out of that. The one is local jobs. Local workers put those up. And the second reason is we have goals for how our grid is supposed to be performing 10 years from now and 20 years from now. And having people build that distributed energy sources throughout our grid is like a really valuable thing. Not only are they building it, but taxpayers aren't paying for it, and the ratepayers aren't paying for it. It's the companies who are paying for this. So it's really good for the future of our state and our trying to reach our net zero goals. It's really a valuable service that they're doing. So that's why they get more. And
net zero carbon, right, Michael?
yes, net zero by 2040 for the grid, and to a 70% reduction from 1990 levels by 2030 for the grid. And this is what your savings would look like. If this is your monthly electric bill, your annual savings would be 36, not that much. If your annual electric bill is, if your monthly bill is $300, your annual savings will be $336, something in that neighborhood. And all you have to do is sign up. It's a good deal. Just this afternoon, I learned something new. Joe, do we have people in the waiting room?
No, not that.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let's see. I learned something new because a friend showed me her O&R bill, including the net metering, and it wasn't working this way. And so this is how it works with net metering, just as is displayed on this charge. There's a separate kind that they're all doing now is called the value of distributed energy resource, or VDER. VDER is how it's sometimes pronounced. Now, you might think that something starts out with the initials VD, it might have some problems with it. And you might also think if a name like VDER sort of reminds you of Darth Vader, you wonder if there's something a little bit about dark side on this thing. Actually, it's a really good alternative to net metering. It's just that it's more difficult to understand. Instead of giving you 1-for-1 kilowatt hour credits, they give the company a cash credit for the electricity based on when and where it's generated. So basically, if it's generated during like a peak hour, a peak demand hour, they get more for it. And so with that system, the basic service charge isn't exempt. They don't credit you with just kilowatt hours, they credit you with cash. You can't get it ahead of the time you use it. So basically, it would also pay your basic service charge. It may also work out that in winter, it doesn't have enough to cover your bill. So part of your bill would not get the 10% discount. But through the summer, you would get the 10% discount on all of your bill. And so what they say is, it looks like in most cases, it will be better for everybody than the 10% off net metering, as I explained in this slide. But it is a little more complicated to understand.
Yeah, Michael, does that apply, VDER, does that apply to community solar as well as net metering?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks for asking. For now, it only applies to community solar. If you have your home system put in, I think they still do net metering. I think it would be more difficult for them to do VDER calculations on an individual meter, although that's a smart meter, so I could be wrong about that. But it's only community solar, and I'm pretty sure anyone who signs up from today forward, they don't have a choice of getting net metering or the VDER. They end up with the VDER. They're going to end up with a VDER. I'm pretty sure that's the way it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And here's a slide that Joe has put together, and we'll distribute this later, about if you're in the Central Hudson region or in NYSEG, how much discount do they give, and some different notes about them. As I was saying before, you want to compare, you want at least a 10% discount, investigate if they do up to 15%, how that works. 1.6%. That probably was really early on. I don't know their story. If they give a sign-up bonus, that's good. If they can get you one right away, that's better than somebody's that's going to hold you for several months before you get to start. And we can look at this more later, and you'll all get copies of this. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is solar for all. And if you're interested in environmental justice, you want to know all about solar for all. So it's available to low-income New Yorkers. And these are the income limits of exactly who qualifies to be a low-income New Yorker. Basically, if somebody qualifies for food stamps or SNAP or HEAP, they automatically qualify for solar for all. If they meet these income limits, but they don't have HEAP or they don't have SNAP, you probably want to help them sign up for HEAP or SNAP first, and then sign up for the solar for all. All of the NYSERDA information says they will save $5 to $15 per month on their electricity bill. But guess what? I think that was under the net meter options, and they're already doing VETR on this. So people are getting more than that off their bill. And again, it's not even, they don't even have to pay their monthly service charge anymore. So a friend of mine whose monthly bill was in the mid 30s was paying like $7 per month for his electric bill over the summer because he signed up for solar for all. And they're saying that maybe when the tier fills up and more people sign up, it will go down, or maybe it won't be so good over the winter, but it's a good deal for low income people. If people are on that income and they're saving $5 to $15 a month on their electricity bill, it's useful money. They have consolidated billing for this. It's not a separate bill. Let's see. Once you're enrolled, it's really easy. You stay enrolled. So let's say somebody's income dips because of the pandemic or something, and they get signed up for solar for all, but then their income goes back up. They can still stay on until 2028, unless it seems like switching over to a subscription model would save them more money, and then they're free to switch at any time. Okay, so looking at our time, I'm going to go very quickly through this, but this is what we filled in a lot of details. But can you currently afford a long-term investment? If you can, the next question: do you plan to stay on your current home for the foreseeable future? If yes, do you own your own home? If you do, and your home is suitable for a solar installation, your best deal would be to pay for that home installation. Don't lease it, buy it or take a loan, but do your home installation. If you own your home, if you don't own your home, you want to look for, you're going to go into the to the share subscription model. And I should update my chart here. If your home isn't suitable for solar installation, you can tell someone you want to sign up for share purchase, but you're going to end up going for share subscription until something works out with that. If you don't plan to stay in your home for the foreseeable future, just go straight for that share subscription model. If you can't afford to do a long-term investment, and you're a low-income New Yorker, then you want to go for solar for all. But if you're not a low-income New Yorker, go for the share subscription model. And now, before we start questions, I have 4 requests for everybody who's here today. So in a book called The Future We Choose, Surviving the Climate Crisis, it's by a couple authors. I can't pronounce the woman's name, but they were the architects of the Climate Paris Agreement from 2015. And in it, they encourage us to plan for the day when our grandchildren will look us in the eye and ask us, what did you do about the climate crisis when you had the chance? And they say, we don't want to be in that position and say, we did all that we could. We want to be able to say, we did everything that was necessary. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring up my 4 asks. Please strongly consider investing in solar. We know people who own boats who don't own their own solar panels. Many of us can afford it. It's important to do this. Just like the community solar arrays that are helping the grid for the future, that's why they give us the incentives. It's not just for the solar panel industry, it's really good for our grid and distributing the way the power is produced. So please take that as a serious consideration for whether or not you should invest in solar. Secondly, please support the companies that are building the grid for us. Get signed up for that share subscription model. It's a good deal. Third, reach out to everyone you know who qualifies for Solar for All and encourage them to participate. I think when I first heard about Solar for All, I thought, gee, who do I know who qualifies? And I realized sort of the very limited size of my social bubble. I really encourage you to find ways to get people who qualify for this signed up. And lastly, get all of these requests to your friends and neighbors.
Michael,
Point,
if I could piggyback on that before we jump to questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to point out that Michael and I are both involved with a program called Energy Navigators. And it's a program run by Cornell Cooperative Extension that's geared to developing a whole cadre of trained volunteers to help people, especially low-income New Yorkers, to get the help they need with their homes and their energy bills to make their homes more comfortable, but also more affordable to heat. And so if you live in Orange County, Michael's your man. If you live in Putnam County, I'm your man. Please get in touch with us for yourself or for neighbors who might need help. This is the season when we can do them a lot of good, not only with NYSERDA programs that can reduce their bills, but with actual weatherization assistance to make their homes, more comfortable and therefore cheaper to heat too. So, Michael, we do have some questions in the chat.
This is my Energy Navigator hat. I just wanted to mention. That's why I've been wearing this hat tonight. It's my Energy
I don't
Navigator
have mine. Hat. So, one question is there a way to know your actual production, electricity production, if you have net metering?
Yes. My first system was built before they had all the apps. Most people, if you have a solar system involved today, you're going to have an app on your phone. It can tell you how much it produced in the last hour or the last day or whatever. What I have to do is my newer system, I can go down and I can get that on the app. It's just that it doesn't include my other solar, so it sort of doesn't really mean much to me. But I have meters in my basement. I very religiously, the 15th and the new moon, in the first day of the month, I go and record these numbers and I put them in a spreadsheet and I see how was my production this month. So you take, what's on your solar meter for how much you've produced, and you take the numbers from your meter as far as what's gone out. You do a little basic addition and subtraction, and you know what was produced and what was consumed, and you compare that, like your wood pile, to how you did in previous months or maybe the same month last year.
And I just had a system installed in August, and I have the app on my phone, and so it includes, I only have one system, so it includes all of the, I don't know if I'll be able to angle this so that you can actually see it. Probably not with this light on.
I think it's the light of your phone that's making the problem.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, you can see little peaks on a little graph that shows, that at 7 a.m. that it starts to grow, and then by 10 a.m. it's up high, and by noon or 1 it's peaked, and then of course at this time of year by 3 p.m. it's starting to decline. But I can look at it monthly view and so forth. But I wanted to mention that Tracy asked this question, and apparently I just learned this myself, that while you're having your system installed, the installers can also add a component to the hardware so that it also would show you on your app how much electricity you're using as well as how much you're generating. And I wish I had that. That would have been an additional feature that nobody mentioned to me when I was having it installed. So if you were going to have solar installed on your home, I would look into getting that as well at the same time. So let's see, another question. Can you set up a system to tap into the solar production in the event of a service power outage?
Okay, so when your system is set up, it's automatically set up that when the grid goes down, your system will also stop feeding into the grid. This is to protect the lives of the people working on the lines. Yeah, it's really important. But if you have your own solar panels, you can get backup batteries. And when you get backup batteries, it can be set up so that you're feeding your backup batteries and not connected to the grid. And that's the way that's done. So, and usually the backup batteries, well, one thing, they are expensive. I heard $10,000 for 13.5 kilowatt hours. And they basically thought if your solar panels were covered with snow and you were only sort of running minimal things off this battery, your house might get through a couple days. But then the snow came off, or maybe it was in the summer and it was some other thing. You know, you could keep filling that every day, filling it back up and using that amount every day if you know if things was right. So, and you could get more than one battery, and battery prices will be coming down. But so let's see, did I answer the question? It's you
Yes.
have to have your own system. If you do community solar, you can't get a backup battery. But if you do have the backup batteries, they will make it so your solar panels will feed the batteries without going onto the grid.
So is that correct, Michael? Is that if you have a grid connected solar installation on your home and backup batteries, you can have it set up so that if there's a power outage, it cuts you off from the grid, but your solar panels continue to feed your backup batteries?
Definitely.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I learned something new.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, no, definitely. I
Cool.
mean, when I asked about solar backup batteries for my house, it was explained. Yeah, yeah. Ask somebody next time to confirm, but
Yeah.
I'm
No,
90
I trust
I'm
you.
98.3% certain about that.
Okay. Thanks. And let's see.
Roughly 98.3.
Um, oh, I had a question actually about net metering. Um, the example you showed had some dramatic credits. So what happens at the end of the year if you still have credits? Do they just roll over to the next year, or does the utility wind up paying you cash, or what happens?
Right. In I'm when I started, I think in my system still, if I get to the end of get to April and I still have credits, April 15th is my cutoff date. And if you look at your bill, it may tell you what your cutoff date is, or your annual reset date, or something like that. And if you have extra credits at that time, they'll pay you for them. The thing is, and this was explained to me by Bill McCoskey, who was the first person in Orange County to have solar panels, and he's a really great contributor to Sustainable Warwick, and I've really learned a lot from him. You don't get paid much for those, so it's better to sort of watch your usage and like pretty much use it up.
Right.
And you don't want to use over too much, but it's you get paid so little for the extra that you got. It's better. Like, so before I got heat pumps, I would use space heaters so I wouldn't use my propane. Right. So I would try to keep my propane use down, use my extra kilowatt hours for a little bit of heating. The space heaters use them up really quick. So, but that's the general idea. It's sort of like with your wood pile, if your wood actually sits around to the second year, that's really good. But with kilowatt hours, I'm not going to say they rot, but you really want to get really down to the end of your wood pile at the end of the year with
Yeah.
kilowatt hours.
Yeah. It's not something I need to worry about. I'm not generating nearly enough power for all my uses.
Oh, and I want to say something else. You started in August. So let's say somebody goes from here and they go and they sign up for community solar right now. they're not going to have any backup credits. So it'll take 60 to 90 days for them to actually get signed up. So let's say the end of February, they get on, with somebody's community solar. They're only going to get like winter output. They won't have any backup credits. So it will just cover a small portion of their electric bill in electricity bill in that month. But once you get to April and May, it will start covering, and then you'll have excess credits. And then when you get around next year, it'll be different.
Right.
And that's if you have a home system, if you're doing community solar, it's the same.
Right. So if anybody has any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself at this point and ask away.
I had sent in a question about a tree, whether I should take down a tree. I don't know, did you see it, or Michael, did you see it?
I saw it, Janet, and I'll do my best to answer it, and then Michael, you can jump in. Actually, Janet, why don't you repeat it so that everybody can hear it, if you could?
Okay. So on the southeast corner, off the southeast corner of my house, there's a large shagbark hickory, and it's got a huge canopy, and some of it does come over my house. So probably about 10 years ago, I had called up a solar company, and they took a look on Google Maps, and they said, you have to take down those trees, otherwise it's not worth putting panels on your house. So, fast forward 10 years, I thought, well, maybe this has changed. But my question really is, how do you, is there any way to calculate the actual energy savings that the tree is giving me? Because it's shading my house in the summertime.
Right.
And
That's
it's
a really good
cooling
question.
it.
Yeah. So let me take a stab at it, and then
Okay.
Michael, you can jump in. So I'll give you two answers, actually. The first answer I'm going to base just on carbon. In terms of carbon, the benefit of having the solar panels on your roof outweighs the benefit of the tree pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and turning it into oxygen and putting carbon in the soil or into its wood. But it's not that simple, right? Trees have other benefits, not least of which is aesthetic. I think we all love trees, and the shade they provide. That's another benefit to your keeping your home cooler. On the other hand, maybe it's preventing it from warming up from the sun in the winter to some extent, although it's deciduous, so not as big a difference. But it's absorbing stormwater runoff. It's providing, I think you actually mentioned this in your question, it's providing habitat for wildlife, for insect life, birds, etc. It's impossible to calculate the value of one tree against the benefit you're getting. But big picture, I would say it's not worth taking the tree down. It sounds like you appreciate that tree. It's good for you. It's good for your yard. It's good for wildlife. If it were a Norway maple, I might feel differently, because that's a non-native species, not particularly good for wildlife in our area. But shagbark hickory, pretty nice tree.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's my take. Michael, do you want to jump in?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Can I ask, since I have the floor here, what about solar shingles for your roof? Has anybody heard anything about them?
A great idea that's still in development. That's
Okay.
my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brendan Mahoney here. I've heard the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Might be a good idea, but the technology's not there yet.
Thank you, Brendan.
Okay.
Cost effectiveness. It's like, it's like you got a black box and you pay this much for it and it makes $1,300 of electricity. And then how much do you have to pay for those shingles to get $1,300 of electricity? It's just, the technology isn't there yet.
Okay.
Brendan Mahoney here again. I have a question. I have passive solar panels on my house for passive hot water right now, 2 panels. I also have community, I think you called it community solar, where I'm hooked up to solar farm couple towns over, and my electric bill is greatly reduced because I'm getting solar from them. I'm now looking into wanting to put heat pumps in the house and have it run by solar energy. That may obviously seems to mean I'll have to put PV photovoltaic cells on my house. Does it make sense to just add them on there? Is it even feasible? That's my question.
Okay, well, Brendan, of course, you saw that my yard, we didn't put them on our roof because, as a matter of fact, we had solar thermal panels also for hot water for a few years. We had real problems with ours and ended up taking them down. And the way our backyard is arranged, people don't know we have big solar panels back there. So people who would walk by thought, oh, you took down your solar panels. And there was actually just 2 panels for hot water. So first of all, is your roof big enough to have enough solar panels to run heat pumps off of?
I don't know how many panels I need, so I'm not sure I can answer that question.
Okay, so
I'd say the back roof is about half covered now with the 2 panels, maybe a third covered.
So you saw that my array was 16 panels. That's what we needed to make like 6,000 kilowatt hours to heat our house. Our house is about 2,000 square feet.
Okay, I probably need a little less. No, I'm about 2,500 square feet. So I would consider taking down the passive solar hot water then.
Yeah. How old is your passive solar hot water?
I think it's about 10 years old. I'm not sure how well it's working either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's probably paid for itself by now, and you've probably, saved money by having it already. So it's not like you'd be, getting rid of a system that's, still hasn't paid for itself. There's that. But that's a kind of a tough call. I would suggest getting estimates from a couple of, reliable solar installers and ask them their opinion. They, and definitely get a few opinions, a few estimates, because I went through this, just a year ago and got 3 pretty different estimates. Each system was also a little different. It was kind of apples and oranges. So I had to kind of figure out but long story short, that'll really give you a kind of a ballpark estimate of whether it's worthwhile economically to you.
And a good place to start for those contractors is a nice sort of website.
Yes. Brendan, are you in Putnam County?
Carmel, New York, Putnam County, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm going to send information to all the participants, and especially if you're in Putnam, I can help you in the future too, and I can, share with you some thoughts about solar installers as well.
Excellent, thank you. I guess you can also look at some things about how to stop some leaks in the house too.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to share my screen again for a minute.
Okay.
The one on O&R is better than this. Maybe I'm on the wrong one. But NICEAG, you're NICEAG, right?
Yes.
Solar is.
Yes.
That's where to go.
They have a savings calculator
House could support solar panels. Why? those
for
two?
figuring. Oh gosh,
This is in the log trunk.
I see the link.
maybe it's not this one. The one for Orange and Rockland's better. I'm going to stop sharing
No,
this.
But
But there are each of the utilities does have calculators for letting you figure out, oh, if you're using this much heating oil for heating your house, what are you heating with now, Brendan?
Oil.
Oh yeah. So if you're heating with oil and you switch to electric and heat pumps, there's sort of an estimate of how much electric you're going to need to do that. And then you could take that and ask somebody, if I need this much electric, how many solar panels do I need? Will it fit on my house? That would be a way to get an estimate of how much you need. O&R has a really good one for this. This calculator, maybe there's a different one. Oh, this is just, it's natural gas versus others.
I can find that. We can
Okay.
find that for you though, Brendan.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
make a note on that.
Any other questions? I thought Eileen was starting to ask something. Go ahead, take yourself off mute.
Okay. So based on our earlier conversation, my house is probably not suitable for solar panels. I wouldn't cut down these trees, but so it seems to me though, with even beside that, that community solar seems to be, I mean, is purchasing and paying for the panels and the installation and of solar panels on your own home, is that much more cost effective than going with the community solar?
Well, I definitely think so. So, I'm getting my kilowatt hours at 9 cents a kilowatt hours, and that's going to be like, or let's say 10 cents per kilowatt, and that's going to be the same price for the next 25 years. If I'm buying it from O&R, I'm getting it 18 cents now, and let's say inflation is 1, 2, 3%. That'll, if it's 3%, it'll double over 25 years. So I'm still paying 9 or 10%. My whole thing's 9 or 10. With a community solar, you're just getting a 10% discount.
Okay.
So if you can do the investment, you really are saving a lot more money to put the panels on your house.
In the long run, I would just stress in the
Yeah.
long run. I mean, it's an investment.
Yeah.
So, and Michael and I were actually talking about this earlier this week. Michael's in Orange and Rockland utility. I'm in NYSEG. Our electricity is actually quite cheap. So the payback period is, relative to Con Ed, especially just south of us. So the payback period is longer for us. So it's a longer term investment. And the difference between what I'm paying the utility and the electricity I'm producing, the difference in price is less than it is I think in Orange and Rockland, and especially in Con Ed territory. I'm not sure about Central and Hudson. I'm not really familiar with their rates, and some Putnam folks are Central Hudson.
Central Hudson, yeah.
Yeah.
But you do want to keep in mind, if you're paying 15 cents per kilowatt hour today, if there's only 1% inflation for the next 25 years, and that seems a little bit light to me, you'll still be paying 9. If you're paying 3, if it's 3% inflation for the next 25 years, they'll be paying 31 cents while you're still paying 14. So it is a long-term proposition.
Right.
It is. But also it's important for us to think long-term. Part of the reason we got into the climate crisis is we think so short-term.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And
Thank you.
I also, I think that's a really good way to look at it. And I also think, as you mentioned earlier, Michael, finance people will say, well, you could put that money into, the stock market and make more money. But yes, but, what is that money going towards? Oil companies, banks, big banks, and you're going to be paying taxes on the profits you make from the stock market as well, right?
Unfortunately,
there's no tax on your solar profits. It's really just going to benefit you and the environment. And as Michael pointed out, it's also creating great jobs,
And what are you breathing in the next 25 years?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, think about it, like, if you're burning oil right now in your home, you're, I mean, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody because we've all been part of this problem, right? But, you stop burning oil to heat your home, and now you're, burning electrons. There's no pollution from that, there's the panels. Yes. There's an environmental impact from them, but it's way lower than, oil. My son works for a environmental consulting firm here in Westchester County. And I can't tell you how many oil spills he has worked on, small oil spills, but they're oil spills. So there's a lot of impacts from our oil burners heating our homes.
Yeah.
And one other thing, Brennan, about when Sustainable Warwick had a Heat Smart campaign a couple of years ago, and is fuel oil, from switching from fuel oil to heat pumps is your greatest annual cost savings. So when your fuel for your I mean, there's initial investment, but there are incentives for that also. But one of the things they'll ask you is, well, what's your price for electricity? But you should definitely sign up for that community solar, at least. So, when they say, well, what's your price for electricity? Well, the default would be 15 cents, but if you're getting 10% off that, it would come out to 13.5 cents.
I'm on that right now.
Okay.
Well, heat
Oh.
pumps are my next project, and I plan to talk to Joe about that, just
Yeah, we
because
have
where I live in Putnam Valley, it's all rock. So I don't know how feasible that is either.
Well, there's ground source and there's air source heat pumps. So,
Ah,
ground
Ground
source
source is quite expensive, but
yes. But there's programs for that too. And Putnam County now has a Heat Smart program as well. So you can get some savings on that as well from New York State.
okay. Thanks, Joe.
Sure.
I have a question about the long-term value of the solar panels. They produce energy for 25 plus years. Do they get to the point over time where they're just not cost effective and you have to replace them? And if so, can they be recharged? Can they be refurbished? Do they have to go into a landfill? Are they recyclable?
Yes.
So on and so forth.
Good question. I'm really glad you asked that. I almost put that in the chat myself because I wanted to draw that information out. So there, a really important distinction that I think people get confused about is that solar panels, it varies from brand to brand, but they tend to be warranted now for about 25 years. And so most people think, well, 25 years and then they're gone, so that's kind of like the end of my payback. No, that's what they're guaranteed for. So, these are smart manufacturing corporations. They're not guaranteeing something that's going to die after 25 years. They would probably like to be able to time it that way, but they can't. They're going to last a lot longer. And their efficiency is much higher than it used to be in terms of, how much electricity you're getting per square foot of panel. And the efficiency may go down over time, but correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but I think the answer is we don't really know how much it's going to go down, but you can be guaranteed that it's not going to go down very much at all for 25 years. And I would suspect, this is, an educated guess, that it's not going to go down much more significantly after 25 years. And it's going to continue to produce power for a long time after that. But yes, they can be replaced. They can be recycled. Everything in there in a solar panel can be recycled. I had a conversation with a Putnam resident who actually worked on solar photovoltaics. He's an electrical engineer, and that was his career for some time. And he said everything in a solar panel can and will be recycled. There's no recycling facilities for solar panels right now because they're all in use and nobody's getting rid of them at the moment. But I think that will come. Do you have anything to add on that?
I've heard that Europe is better about recycling solar panels than we are. And the man I mentioned before, Bill Makovsky, I always feel good about mentioning Bill. He knows so much good things to share. And he was the first person in Orange County to have solar panels. So he actually got some panels that are wearing out. But and before 25 years, but those were the older ones. And so they've seen how solar panels age and they've been improving them. And it's sort of like computers. Remember, what did you pay for your first computer and how much computing power did it have? And what do you pay now and what's the computing power? And the solar panels are really going like that. So I mentioned before, the incentives are going down, but also the prices for this really good equipment, it's getting better and better and the prices are still going down.
Is there a reason why wind power isn't part of the equation?
Wind is a lot more expensive, actually. Installing wind is a lot more involved in terms of, building towers, siting towers. While it might seem like it's always windy around here, it's actually, in order to put up a wind generator here, you really want it on a ridge line. And that's, that's going to take away the vista for a lot of people, or it's going to mar it for a lot of people. So I think siting wind is more difficult. It's more expensive. It's definitely part of the solution. I think offshore wind is coming offshore New York State, actually. It's already in place in Rhode Island. If you've been out to Block Island, you've probably seen the towers there out in the ocean.
Yeah, off Cape Cod.
Yeah, Nantucket.
Speaking of the ocean, is it feasible to generate power through the waves of the ocean?
Tidal Power is a thing. And in fact, in New York Harbor, there was experimental tidal power generators. They had video cameras on them. Actually, you could watch them. But the tide was so strong, it actually destroyed the generators. Yeah, it's incredible. But I think there's a lot of potential there for sure.
That's the sort of question I would look on Project Drawdown and see where they rank that. So yeah, I mean, there are those ideas out there, but actually onshore wind, when I talked about the second scenario of if the world's going to get to a 1.5 degrees of warming, the number one was onshore wind. And that has to do with my hometown of Normal, Illinois. I grew up in central Illinois, and I mean, there are plains, it's very flat there. So there are a lot of places that are good sites for wind turbines. And I happen to know somebody who was a lawyer, and like at one point, 1% of the nation's wind turbines were in the area surrounding Normal, Illinois. Who knew? Who knew?
Yeah.
We saw a lot of wind farms driving from here to Colorado through Kansas and
Yeah, good.
the plains and so on, where there
Plains,
are.
yeah, the plains are different than here, where here, it's on a ridge line. Actually, here there is going to be something else. I don't know if they'll do ridge lines, but there are discussions these days about how, like for a large scale solar farms, large, huge, there are siting issues with those. And people say, not in my backyard. No. If we're going to make those energy goals, they're putting it together now. It's going to be a 1 year process to put those things in. And, there will be some challenges with that, but we have to stand behind it. And stuff like, if it's a brownfield, if it's some, chemical waste site from before, it's a 6-month process to put it in. But then if it's, some farmland or something, then it's different.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to keep people too late. If you have other questions, you can, I'll be emailing everyone with some materials from the presentation and other materials that I think would be useful to you. And if you have additional questions, by all means, feel free to reply. And if it's a question for Michael, I can send it his way and he can get back to you. And if it's a question for me or that I can answer, I'll definitely get back to everybody.
And if we don't know, we are energy navigators, so we can talk to someone from Cornell Cooperative Extension and get the real answer for you.
That's right.
And one other thing, if you have suggestions for my presentation, I will take them to heart, and next time I do the show, I will improve. So please send those along.
I thought it was an excellent presentation, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
As did I, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, and also let us know when you sign up for solar.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be wonderful to hear.
Will do.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night. There we go.